This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
This is Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. I am excited to have a good friend that I recently met a few years ago, the internationally renowned Dr. Kenneth Cooper. Dr. Cooper, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, I've heard a lot about your story since I moved to Dallas, and we had a chance to speak a few times recently. And I'm amazed at what you've built through the years. Tell me how you got started. I hear that you were in the Air Force and the Army. You served our country. I grew up in a military town, so I love our military forces. What took you to the military?
Spent 13 years in the military, 2.5 years in the Army, stationed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where I met my wife of soon to be 65 years, been married.
Nice.
Transferred to the Air Force to go into the aerospace medicine program. I thought I'd be a scientist astronaut. That was when it was in 1960. But then after working with NASA and working with the Air Force, I decided it was going to take a long time to get a flight into space. So in 1970, my colleague was Bill Thornton. We were both working together to become scientist astronaut. I decided to leave. And he stayed. It took him 17 years to get his first flight into space. So that was one of the
But he made it, right?
Yeah, he made it into space finally, but it took him 17 years. But I think the most interesting thing in getting started is telling a story that happened when I was in school. Born and raised in Oklahoma City, my father practicing dentist. And three of us, my two sisters and I, were either valedictorians or salutatorians for our graduating class at Putnam City, a suburb of Oklahoma City. My brother came along. He's the youngest. He's now 87. I have sisters that are 30 and then 90 and then 96. I'm 93.
Wow.
But he struggled academically. We were the educated ones, made good grades, and he was the other end of the scale. All the teachers were surprised at Dr. Cooper going through the classes there at Putnam City. But what happened, though, he finally got into dental school, and he was on probation at first for dental school academically. But when he got the second year, he excelled with his hands. But then when he got in practice with my dad, he finally made the decision that he didn't want to stay in dentistry because I love dentistry, but I can't stand the patients. but what he did, he had invested in some sonic drive-ins in Oklahoma City. That's the headquarters of sonic drive-ins. One of his friends got him involved in that. So he now no longer practices dentistry, gave up on that. He has 45 sonic drive-ins.
Oh, wow.
He's the wealthiest member of the family by a bunch.
Your brother, the little
you have to
brother.
be an intellect to be successful in business. Well, I thought that was an interesting introduction because we didn't ever think that he would do anything from an academic standpoint, but he sure knew how to handle a business. He's done extremely well. He has his son now has taken over his operation. He's primarily in Tennessee and areas of the country. And he says, don't call me until 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't get up anymore until 9 o'clock. So he was the dumb one. I'm the smart one.
Well, that's interesting, though, because I think a lot of people feel as if you have to get the MBA to start a business and go through all these courses. And become proficient at it before you open a business. And you're saying he was a dentist that got into business and he's done well.
Extremely well.
That's amazing. And how's the son?
He didn't want to go into medicine because I don't work as hard as you do. That was the reason he said, I want to just go into business. And so he went to Baylor and got his degree in business. But after he got out, he realized he was never going to be able to be anything other than maybe an administrative officer, not a physician at the clinic. And he said, I want to go back to medical school. I want to go to medical school. He had no academic requirements for it. He had to work for me for a couple of years and get these classes to be able to get into medical school, and that was in San Antonio. It was tough for him because he was way behind because the other people in the class were much younger than he were, but they just went directly from their pre-med requirements into medical school. So he toughed it out, got through medical school, got his internship, and then he got married. I think that made the difference. And then he went on to Harvard School of Public Health, where I was there.
Okay.
I was there for 2 years. He was there for a year. And I said, Tyler, I can get you into Harvard School of Public Health. I can't keep you there. You have to do it yourself. Did well. And he came back, took over the operation. Now he's the chairman. He's the president and CEO of the organization and done a wonderful job in renovating the whole organization. We just recently expanded our fitness center, which we will have to cap the membership. It's so successful.
Wow.
We have a clinic that's one of the most renowned clinics in America. We're ranked number 2 behind the Cleveland Clinic as far as the top examinations that we do. Behind us, you find Duke, Johns Hopkins, and the Mayo Clinic.
Impressive company.
And now we have a 6-month waiting list, people trying to come to the clinic. And 40% of our patients are corporate-sponsored corporations. I began to see the value of putting some money into their top executives because we found that the most common first symptom of severe heart disease is sudden death. People don't realize it until it's too late. So if you can pick up that disease early as we can with treadmill stress testing, we can save lives, and we're doing that on a daily basis. Right. We'll have people come from all over the country, all over the world. They come in for examinations, and they will find a person that comes in without any history of heart disease. They have a coronary calcification score that they find going to the clinic with the CT scan. Put them on the treadmill, it's abnormal. And then we do CT angiograms. They're in the clinic. We don't have to go in the hospital to do that. We do it in the clinic, find they have severe disease, and we put them in the hospital right away within 3 or 4 hours, getting over there, get angioplasty and a stent done. Wow. That happens 2 or 3 times a week, and people come to the clinic, they're perfectly healthy.
Wow.
So and that's exactly what happened to George Bush a few years ago when he came back from being president. Always outstanding athlete, always did very well with his treadmill stress test, but he had a change in his EKG, his stress test. So his CT angiograms showed that he had major problem in the widowmaker.
Right.
And we really got him into the hospital, and we did an angiogram on him and found that it was true, that he had 98% obstruction of the widowmaker, the LAD. That's the one that supplies the blood to where the heartbeat comes from. Well, immediately did an angioplasty, and that was now 9-10 years ago, and he's perfectly healthy.
Wow.
So that's just an example of many people that have come to the clinic because this examination is the best health insurance and life insurance you can buy.
That's incredible.
Health insurance, disease insurance, life insurance, is death insurance, primary care, secondary care. We're practicing primary care. Our goal is, number one, to prevent cancer and heart disease. If we can't prevent it, diagnose it early. That's why we're overwhelmingly successful. Yeah. I have so many people to call me and tell me, Dr. Cooper, I want to thank you for saving my life.
That's amazing.
That's what motivates me to keep even practicing medicine at 93 years of age, is the contact I have with the patients. Are so appreciative of what we've done, and to see the ramifications of that, and see how well my son is doing. And people ask me how I can go from a 2 office and 2 employees. This is 54 years ago here in Dallas, when I had the wrath of the Medical Society. I was going to do something as dangerous as treadmill stress testing. They wanted me to consider joining at Southwestern Medical School, but they couldn't guarantee me any continuity. Wow. If somebody got mad at me, I would lose my job there. And so I'm going to do it on my own. So I told them that 54 years ago, do my own. They said, you can never be successful in Dallas unless you join us, because we control medicine in Dallas. Let's wait and see what happens. They said, you can't limit your practice taking care of healthy people like Manzi. Just see what happened. So why have we been so successful? Go from ground zero, we're at the present time a 30-acre facility. We have about 600 employees. We have 27 full-time physicians, a waiting list, as I mentioned, because, number one, I don't hesitate in saying this, because divine intervention. I'm very strong in my belief, because there's so many times over the years I need to make a decision. I want to go one way. I want the other way. If I had gone the way I wanted to be, I wouldn't be here today.
Right.
Number two is a fantastic staff. And I tell the CEOs I speak to, you're going to be just as successful as your staff makes you.
Right.
You got to delegate responsibility. You have to do that. Give them a free hand. Give them a chance to show what they can do. Delegate the responsibility. So don't just try to take complete control. Don't do that.
Right.
And number three, we've proven in some longitudinal studies you can prevent disease. A whole lot cheaper and more effective to prevent disease than to find a cure. And we've shown that with Alzheimer's. We can reduce Alzheimer's by 36%, as we've done in the patients coming to our clinic. We reduce chronic kidney disease by 40%. We reduce cancer by 25%. Can reduce the cost of health from 65 to 75 years of age by 40%.
Wow.
Just by embracing the concept of preventive medicine and wellness. And then finally, if people realize they have a need, and you provide a service that they want, they'll make you successful in any field. And that's why 74% of our patients are returning patients. That's the combination of things we've done with divine intervention to be successful.
Now, that's amazing. So 600-plus employees. How many acres? 30-plus acres.
Facility.
But it didn't start that way. I think you mentioned 2 employees. And in those early days, if I remember correctly, you went to your wife, Millie, and you said, I don't know if I can do this. In the early days, you didn't know if it would work. But what happened? You spoke to her and she said, do you believe in this, right?
Do you believe what you're doing is right? And I said, yes. She said, you got to say you can't turn back.
Right.
Almost went back in the Air Force. I was successful in the Air Force. I was lieutenant colonel. I was going to soon be promoted to a full colonel. Within 6 months, they said, you got an opportunity. You may become Surgeon General of the Air Force one of these days.
Oh, wow.
I wrote my first 2 books in the Air Force, Aerobics 1968, and then the second book, Aerobics in 1970. And so I had a good following. I was just honored in February at the Pentagon Annex in Falls Church, Virginia, where they recognized that the whole aerobics program began while I was in the Air Force. And it did because I worked at 5 Air Force bases, had 27,000 people involved in the study for 4 years, 15,000 exercises, 12,000 controls. And from that, we developed the 12-minute test, which has become international now, the Cooper test, which is certainly known in Brazil, I can assure you. But then we developed the point system, and that's the whole basis of the aerobics program that's been so successful. And that's the first 2 books. I have 19 books already published.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm finishing, I've already got the 20th one. It's already in its final stages.
That's fantastic.
And we got a publisher. It looks like we finalize that contract in the next couple of weeks. Hope to get this published before Christmas. And what it's going to be is, the title of the book is The Father of Aerobics, a life dedicated to the prevention of disease and promoting the worldwide impact of exercise. We're all around the world.
Right.
I think I may have told you that we have the 4 documentaries we also have made. One is 2 are for genetic, for the general public, and we have 1 for physicians, and then 1 for medical students, because physicians aren't taught anything about preventive medicine medical school.
Even still today?
When I was in medical school back in the 50s, we were taught that preventive medicine is the Cinderella of the medical specialty because there's no profit in health.
Right.
That's what they told me. You can't limit your practice taking care of healthy people to make ends meet. Look what's happened. We've been so highly successful in going the other way. But one of the classics of that, we actually had a premiere of one of the documentaries, 42 minutes in length, at the Bush Library back in November 2023. And CNN had a reporter to come down, not to do a video, but just to interview me.
Right.
And so they put that on their site, on their homepage, and you can still get it now.
Oh,
and that's fantastic. Over a year later. And you can see that it's still there. You go to CNN and just type in Cooper exercise, and you can see this interview, which they told me the other day has now been downloaded by 729,600,000 people around the world.
Almost 1 billion people.
That's exactly right.
That's amazing.
And that's just been amazing that it's still there because people are still dying. I even had a text the other day from Uzbekistan. You can believe that. So it started with an idea and a concept and lots of resistance, from medical societies particularly. There's been a real turnaround there, too, after they fought me at first. And something is dangerous, treadmill stress, you can't do it, you're going to kill people. I did this in the Air Force for all the years I was in the Air Force, developed the whole concept of being able to monitor the exercising subject with an EKG you could read. We developed it to use in NASA. I worked with NASA. They have something to use in space that they could monitor EKG when a person is exercising extravehicular and all that. So Bill Thornton, my colleague, and I developed that technique for getting the EKGs the way we're using them today now in treadmill stress testing. But so they wanted me to take my license away. You can't do it. It's dangerous. Can't practice medicine in Dallas that way. I said, just wait a minute. I lectured before the Board of Censors, and I gave a very erudite presentation on the safety and sensitivity and value of treadmill stress testing. So the second person in town had a treadmill for stress testing with the chairman of the Board of Censors. We've done over 350,000 treadmill stress tests, and 16.1% are abnormal equivocal. Only 5% know they have a problem. So 11% of 150,000 patients we've diagnosed heart disease, and they come to the clinic on the first time. And those are lives that are being saved. So the real climax of the story is they called me the other day from the Dallas Medical Society, and after fighting me all these years and all, we want to recognize your accomplishments. And we want to offer you a lifetime free membership, the Dallas County Medical Society and Texas Medical Association. I said, you guys finally got your head out of this thing. No, I didn't say that I wanted to. But that's the whole turnaround. It's been an uphill battle all the way, and I praise the Lord every day for that.
Amazing. So I think, if anything, for a lot of business owners, I was with the CEO and founder of a really large firm not long ago, and he said that it took him 10 years for people to really understand their product. And it sounds like it took the medical industry a long time to understand the value of what you were doing. So you've been in it 50 years to convince them to change their mind. And it sounds like they finally reached that goal.
And now, as I said, they're trying to duplicate what we're doing.
Right.
Instead of fighting me, now they're trying to duplicate what we're doing. But we have the best mousetrap, though.
You do.
We're way ahead of everybody else.
Now,
that's what's so nice.
I read a lot of that's because the data, you were collecting a lot of good data in those early days that people started to figure out it made sense.
I established my research institute before I saw my first patient, December 6, 1970. Because in the first 2 books I published in the Air Force, the average age was 28 years, the people I was working with.
Right.
But I had no idea when I published that book in 1968, it became a New York Times bestseller list. It was on the list for about a year.
Oh, wow.
But the people reading the book were 40, 50 years of age. So I had to cut it down. That's the reason I wrote the New Aerobics the second year, 1970. Right. Don't take that 12-minute test until you go through a preparation program. like walking for 6 weeks or so to try to keep it. There were no major deaths, praise the Lord, but I was concerned about that, so I did that. So, but what we've done, though, because we collected data on all these patients, 150,000 patients, and we've stored that data in our computers, and we have over 2 million person years of follow-up on our patients now,
wow.
from which we've published over 700 papers in peer-reviewed journals proving exercise is medicine.
Now, I think in those early days, people didn't believe exercise. They thought it, like you mentioned, they thought it would kill you. And I think your own father has some issues with you running.
That's for sure, because I was an athlete in high school and college and made All-State in basketball in Oklahoma and won the state championship in the mile run. In fact, I only missed the state record by 1 second when I was a senior in high school back in 1949. My father, practicing dentist, was believing what they were saying back in those days. You exercise too much, you get an athletic heart. Back in those days, the only way we could see it in an athlete was to get a chest x-ray, and you could see their heart was enlarged. Well, they thought mistakenly that was just because of big muscle. We didn't have echocardiograms back in those days. But what it was actually was slight enlargement of the muscles, but it was the dilatation of the heart. The heart enlarged because it increased the ejection fraction. That's part of the aerobic training effect. And so what happens is your heart is doing more work with less effort. Why do you think the average American male has a heart rate of 72, average American female about 78? Our runners have heart rates in the 40s and the 50s because that heart is so efficient, you can do a whole lot more work with less effort. Well, the critics I had in the early days, you only have a certain number of heartbeats. And so you're burning up, you're going to die early. And my father was convinced I was going to die early, so he rebelled completely, but he didn't keep me from participating. So my mother supported everything I did. My dad never saw me play basketball. He never saw me run to train me. Although I made all these outstanding accomplishments, never saw it because he was afraid I was killing myself. I outlived him by 16 years. He died at 77 years of age.
Oh, my God.
That was all a myth of exercise. I had a podcast. I had a split television interview once with a gentleman from New York. It was national television. He wrote a book entitled The Exercise Myth. And I said, and he tried to criticize everything I was doing. And he said the number of deaths of exercise was like 6.1 for every 10,000 hours or so. I said, Dr. Salm, it was 0.61, not 6.1. You're completely taking my data line. Oh, no, that. My son was watching. He said, why didn't you hit him, Dad? Because I said he was in New York, I was in Dallas, couldn't do it. But that's kind of resistance that I had. It was difficult. The street going to be full of dead joggers. People follow Cooper. Cooper's going to kill more people than Hitler did in World War II.
Wow.
I mean, it was really vicious in those early days. In fact, there was a famous physician, they called him Horrible Herman. I won't give you his last name, for Western Reserve. And I was asked to speak in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, a medical meeting. And he was there. And he was speaking ahead of me. Oh, this is right, the book came out in 1968. And so we have Dr. Kenneth Cooper here today. I want you to know that little aerobics book that he's published has been so popular. The only thing that will protect you if you have a heart attack is having your pocket or pushing the call when you when you fall. He said that. I just smiled at him when he said that. That's the kind of criticism I had in the early days. It was tough. And I'll tell you, I almost went back to the Air Force. Because they had this promising career. If you go out, you leave, and you'll be a commander of a hospital. We want you to go out and work and become a member of a hospital and on your way up to the top. You may do that in the Air Force. Very promising
I think so many people give up. And like you said, they either would have gone back to the military or they would have gone to an established hospital and just worked their way up and given up.
None of this would have happened.
None of this would have happened. Now, tell the story about you finding the property, because I think you put a bid on the property and they were all rejected. Oh, yeah. And then, if I remember correctly, she heard about your book. Tell that story.
Let me tell you what happened there. Mrs. Clarice Nichols had this property we had at the present time, but it was only 22 acres. And her husband had died of a heart attack at 57 years of age, and he had, over the years, had accumulated the 22 acres. And she wanted to break it down, but I like it down to 8.6 acres. I like it forward, $1.6 million I had to get that. And she kept turning it down. I'm not going to break it down for anybody. And so my real estate agent went to her twice, and she said, no, I can break it down. But I have to take the whole thing or nothing. And he said, well, Dr. Cooper just can't really afford that, and he wants to break it down. And so he finally said, just a minute. Is he the man who wrote that book on exercise? And he said, yes, he wrote Aerobics. And so a clear blue sky, she said, for him, I'll do it. Now, why did that happen? Well, it happened because prior to leaving the military, I was asked to speak at the Layman's Leadership Lodge up in Colorado Springs, a conference up there by Howard Butt, HEB. He had to come up and give a testimony with my wife. And so we gave a testimony at that group, and she was sitting in the audience.
Oh, wow.
And she heard us give our testimonies, and she committed at that time, if I could ever help that young couple, I'm going to help them. So because she said that, for him, I'll do that. That was just one of many answered prayers that I've had.
And what's amazing is that I tell young people this all the time in business. You never know where that kind of interaction will come. She just happened to be in the audience. You didn't know her. You didn't know that she was in the audience. And then it turns out that she owned the property that you were looking to buy. It's amazing how that happens in life.
We got the 8.6 acres and the 22 acres, and we finally bought the church when they wanted to move out, so we have 30 acres there now.
That is incredible.
And finally, in 2004, we burned the mortgage in Aerobics Center. Another answered prayer.
Wow.
Let me give you another example. I start my day every day with prayer and Bible study. I'm very strong in my beliefs, as you can tell. And I have a prayer list. And just within the last couple of weeks, a gentleman came in, and I hadn't seen him in years. And I said, you've been on my prayer list for a long time, but I don't recall what it was for. Tell me what it was for. I haven't seen him in several years. It's because of my daughter. And said that 18 years ago, she was diagnosed as having leukemia and had less than 6 years to live. She's now 53 years of age. But I've been praying for her all this time and didn't know what I was praying about. And I said, praise the Lord, I'll move her from my prayer list to my answered prayer list.
Oh, fantastic.
That just happened the last couple of weeks.
That's amazing.
So the Lord has had his hand on my life without question. Let me tell you the epiphany that really changed my career, though.
Yes.
Because I hadn't planned on being a specialist in preventive medicine. I was going to be an ophthalmologist. In fact, I finished my internship up in Seattle at Harborview Hospital there, and I made arrangements to come back after I finished my 2 years in military. I had to go and pay back the military. They deferred me during the draft. So I get through medical, I was going to internship, then I had to go back and pay 2 years. I was going to do in the Army. It's what I did. But then I made arrangements after I finished that 2 years. I was going back to Portland, Oregon, and do my residency in ophthalmology, become an ophthalmologist. I'd probably stay in the Pacific Northwest if I had done that, because I was dating a girl from Seattle at that time, from Anchorage, really. But then what happened, I had to wait to go into the military. So for 6 years, my athletic weight in high school and college was no more than 168 pounds, 165 to 168. Once I got into medical school, I realized the most common manifestation of stress is obesity.
Right.
And I ate to keep awake at night to study. So it was tough. So I gradually I didn't exercise. I didn't have time to exercise. So 4 years, I can't gain any weight. And by the time I finished my internship, I weighed 204.
Oh, wow.
I'd gone from 168 to 204. In that moribund state, not done anything, I decided to go water skiing again up Lake Texoma after doing nothing for 6 years. Got halfway through the slalom course, and I had chest pain. My heart was racing out of my chest. I thought, my gosh, I'm having a heart attack. Get me over the side. Get me over the side. They got me to the side over at the beach there. By the time I got over there, the heart rate came back to normal and the pain disappeared. I was in the Air Force at the time. So the next day, I went back to School of Aerospace Medicine in San Antonio and had a complete diagnostic workup. They said, Doc, the only thing wrong with you is you're out of shape. I was hypertense. I was pre-diabetic. I was 29 years of age. And so what happened, I lost weight within 6 months from my first marathon a year later. I ran for 40 years and 38,000 miles until I had to stop running when I broke my leg snow skiing. But what happened when I lost that weight and got in shape, that blood pressure problem disappeared.
Right.
And so the diabetes disappeared. My gosh, what am I missing? This is a whole field I should get involved in.
Right.
And that was the epiphany, another epiphany in my life that made me change to become a full-time physician specializing in the prevention of disease. And that's what's made us successful.
So it's amazing how much stress can impact a lot of items, including healthcare-related items. I studied briefly homeopathy in college, which talks to some degree about preventative and alternative medicine. But it sounds like you figure that out, and you have executives from all these different companies. And I presume you're trying to reduce their stress, trying to get them healthy, which also helps to prevent other health issues. Tell me about some of that.
We've proven that because we have a division that works with corporations to help them establish worksite wellness program. Because we find you get your employees in a worksite wellness program, you see a decrease in absenteeism due to disease. You increase their work productivity by doing that. And so the bottom line is very beneficial from a financial standpoint if you get your employees involved. And we have data to prove that. Can you afford not to get your employees involved in a worksite wellness program? And so we have several Cooper clinics or Cooper fitness centers at corporations around America that are supervised by our operation here in Dallas. I just had a very interesting request from Oklahoma, my home state. And Oklahoma has a worth history as far as per capita people that are incarcerated for both women and men in the country. I didn't know that. Oklahoma, my home state, I'm ashamed, been one of the fattest states in the country and one of the deconditioned states in the country. I even tried to get our fitness gram testing program in schools in Oklahoma. Couldn't do that, so they're just fighting me on that. I did my pre-med and medical school all in Oklahoma. But a good friend of mine, he was formerly the chairman of the Board of Regents at Oklahoma at the University of Oklahoma. He was a very prominent attorney. And he was just making us aware of that fact that the problem that we have with the women in prisons and men is so outlandish. It's so unusual per capita. We got to do something about that. And he found that some of these women in one of the prisons near Oklahoma City, or I'm not quite sure where it is, that these women on their own are taking courses they can get credit in college. Okay. They have something to look forward to. And they're also, a lot of these women are getting involved in exercise programs of their own from themselves, wherever it may be. Right. And he said, we need to have an organized program for these women in prison to participate in a supervised exercise program. And I said, it's a great idea. And he has a foundation which he's in charge, says, we can fund that. Can you do that?
Oh, great.
We're going to look into that and work with this first prison for women in Oklahoma and try to have a person come in maybe once or twice a week to lead an exercise class like we do every day at the fitness center. And see, the women, I think they'll jump on this for just the boredom, if nothing else, and maybe change that situation. That's the situation we have in Oklahoma, being the highest per capita incarceration of any state in any country, I hear.
It's interesting. So at a couple of the companies that I worked, I remember joining this one company, and I knew we needed to change our culture. The culture was just struggling. It was a merger of a lot of different companies. One of the first things that I did, and I didn't have your program to do this with, but I had a health and wellness program. But I absolutely believe that a health and wellness program in the company shouldn't be giving out flyers. We needed to do something physical, so we built a gym. I had active programs from basketball, table tennis, but just to get people up and moving. And so I totally understand what you're saying. We had a morning and evening boot camp, and we entered a team into a Tough Mudder competition because we just felt like, this is my personal belief, Ronnie's belief, that people need to be active. And then we had healthy cooking classes as a part of our program. We had tango and ballroom dancing. Because I believe, like you, that it's not just about reading on good health, it's physically doing it.
But you can't just establish a fitness center for your employees unless you go this route. Because Ross Perot had a beautiful fitness center there on his campus and no one ever used it.
Right.
Because you have to have not only a fitness center, but you have to have leadership and you have to have programs. It's our key to success. So just don't put something and say that they will make it successful. But I know some corporations don't have a fitness center, but they will move with the sheriffs over in the cafeteria and they'll have classes, things of that type. So you can be creativity there, you can be creative there, and provide ways that you can have corporate fitness programs that the employees will benefit from immensely. And that'll retain your people too. They're less likely to leave the corporation if they're involved in something of that type. Less likely to come back into prison if they go through these programs, both their academic programs and their physical education programs.
Right.
It's interesting that I write these articles for Decision Magazine. I've been doing this since January 2020 at the request of Franklin Graham. That goes to about 500,000 people. I write articles every month. I've done that. And I'd encourage people to go to the internet. You go to the Billy Graham organization. You can just very cheap membership to get a subscription to this magazine every other month. But the latest one, do you need to be physically and spiritually fit? And the answer is very definitely yes. And that'll be out within the next couple of weeks. But then the next will be coming out in September is one I did a lot of research on. Can you actually slow down or reverse the aging process? And now you can. We know you can do that. But the foundation, all these organizations that are showing you can slow down the aging process and prolong lives are all concentrating. Every one of them have exercise a part of it. Now, we have an example of that from our own program. We have 150,000 patients in our database, but we followed 100,000 who went through our program, who have been in our program for at least 45 years. And this is a women's survival from 1970 to 2015. And we got their mortality statistics. And we're able to show that they're squaring off the curve. They're living long, healthy lives of fullness and dying suddenly. They're condensing the time of senility and senescence into a short period to be prior to death. That's what I want to do. If I die tomorrow, I've had a wonderful life. I can complain that. But the amazing thing is our women are averaging 90.4 years. I'm 86.5 years. So the average for our men and women is 88.6 years. The average for the United States is 79 years.
Wow.
So we're proving without question we can prolong lives, productive lives. Our goal is help you to have quality life and prolong lives, and up until that final moment. And by doing that, that's one reason the cost of health care in this longitudinal study by 40%. Those are the top category of fitness, for body category of fitness, for 25 years, because they were in the top level of fitness, measured objectively by treadmill time. Other studies, like the Harvard School of Public Health, has a study with their nurses and physicians, and they came to the same conclusion that we have with their 5 basic rules. That the basic rules include exercise, but our basic rules include being Cooperized. 8 different things. And with my book coming out in the future, we're going to emphasize that. We hope to revolutionize the world about the way of practicing medicine, because there are 8 different things. And we'll go through this very briefly. 8 different things. Number 1 is your body weight. Get your body mass index. Pick it up on the internet and type in your height and your weight, and they'll give you a body mass index. It should be 18 to 25. 25 to 30 is overweight. 30 to 35 is obese. Above 35 is morbidly obese. You should be 18 to 25. That's number 1. Number 2 is get 30 minutes of exercise, collective or sustained, most days per week. That's all it takes. If I get you to move up 1 block on the fitness scale from very poor to poor, we published this in November 3rd, 1989, the JMA, Physical and All-Cause Mortality. There's the fitness scale. I can move 1 block on the fitness scale. If they could increase the life expectancy by 6 years, reduce cause-of death by 58%. Going all the way to the top category of fitness, only 9-year increase in longevity, and 65%. The best return on your fitness investment is to avoid inactivity. These people moving up from category 1 to category 2 by getting thermal exercise, like versus say, 90% of those people moved up to at least the 2nd, if not the 3rd category. Doesn't take that much. Number 3 is your diet. And your diet, make it simple. 5 is fine, 9 is divine. Number of servings and fruits and vegetables should be consumed daily. Average American adult, 3.1. Average American teenager is 1.6. Number 4 is supplementation. I take vitamins every day, particularly vitamin D. It's extremely important.
Oh, interesting.
I take 7,000 a day because we've found that's a good way to protect you from the ravages of these coronaviruses, like COVID-19. Right. I've had 2 episodes of COVID-19. They're very mild. I keep my vitamin D level between 65 and 70. All I had was just a cough. I had to be quarantined for 5 days. So that was it. At 93 years of age, I could have died from it.
Oh.
Because I had this high vitamin D level, and we've proven that can be beneficial. So we've done that. And so I take my vitamins daily. Next on the list, you can't smoke. You can't use tobacco in any form, including vaping. You can't do that. So too many dangers associated with that. And number next, you have to control alcohol. In fact, the latest recommendation for cancer is you shouldn't drink at all, because alcohol is related to cancer. They can show that now. I'll talk about that in one of my articles in Decision magazine. But if you drink, I don't drink at all, but if you drink, you can't drink more than a drink a day for men or women. Okay. That's 7 a week. You used to think you could drink 2 a day if you're a man, for 14 a week, or 7 for women. We found that men were shortening their lifespan 1.5 to 2 years. Next on that list is control stress. And remember, the way we control stress is by exercising the end of the day. That's the way I burn up the stress of the day, is exercise before I go home. And get at least 7 hours of sleep per night. All very important. And finally, number 8 is get an examination of some type. You can't afford the very expensive examination we have, but you can at least get this. You get your height and your weight and your blood pressure. You get a test for your cholesterol and your blood sugar. And you just get these various things. It would take minimal dollars to do that. And you have a resting EKG. Very inexpensive. You get that. You'd be surprised how far you could go in picking up disease early.
That's amazing. Dr. Cooper, it's been so much fun having you on the program and telling your story and building a fantastic organization that covers the entire globe. There are few people that has had as much of an impact, particularly on preventative medicine, as you have around the world. I am grateful to have had you on the show and hope you come back soon, Dr. Cooper.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share, and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.